Let's talk. This is one of those questions that I have known the answer to for so long that I just kind of forgot that it was ever a question. And this actually came up just about a week ago now for me. I was talking with one of our local members, and he was expressing interest in applying for a local office. And over the course of the conversation, it became very apparent to me he had no idea the actual process for applying for a local office here in the Kingdom of Ansteorra. So that I think that's a really good indication that this is something that we can talk about. Now, obvious disclaimers up front. Every office, because it is unique, has nuances and some differences in both how the office is handled and how it is applied for. And Ansteorra does things differently than other kingdoms. Each kingdom is unique. So what I'm going to say here is what I know for the Kingdom of Ansteorra. If your kingdom does things differently and you'd like to share how the process works, please feel free to do so in the comments. I actually love interkingdom anthropology conversations, especially about stuff like this. It's fascinating, it's interesting, and it's educational. I really do enjoy that. But Ansteorra. So first of all, real quick, we're going to take just a quick look at how Ansteorra is run. At the very top, you have two co-equal arms of governance. You have the royal arm and you have the administrative arm. Now, the royal arm consists of the crown sovereign and the consort, their heirs. Ansteorra has a principality, so we have territorial royalty. And then you have the landed nobles, the territorial nobility of the kingdom. And that's, in a nutshell, is the royal arm. Now, on the other side, you have the administrative arm. And this is a massive structure that administers pretty much everything that happens in the kingdom. To oversimplify this rather greatly, the royal arm's responsibility is to inspire and recognize, and the administrative arm does just about everything else. So at the very top of the administrative arm are the kingdom level officers, the greater officers of state. Beneath them are their deputies. Now, some of those deputies are immediate reporting deputies that assist that officer in their job. Some of them serve secretarial functions, some of them serve administrative functions, some of them are specialists in specific fields, subfields of whatever that office is. The other group of deputies are regional deputies. Ansteorra has two regions and a principality, and as such, we have regional officers and a principality officer in each of the officer slots. And those offices' job, each individual of them, is to directly administer over the local offices. And then, of course, you have local officers. Now, keep in mind, we refer to, at least on Ansteorra, the nomenclature is we have a slate or a docket of officers. Now, there is a minimum officer requirement. Every group in Ansteorra must have a seneschal, a reeve or exchequer, or some sort of treasury-oriented officer. And they must have, now this minimum is moved up and down. I believe the total number is 4. Smaller groups might be 3, but the point is that there is a minimum number of officers. Now, what that means is that there's a very good chance that whatever group you are in, even if it's a barony, might possibly not have a full docket of officers. There may be an office that, for whatever reason, they have not filled. Maybe no one stepped up to fill it. Maybe they've decided they don't need it. Whatever the case may be. Now, I'm not suggesting that on that alone you should go apply to that office. Sometimes those offices are left vacant for a very good and functional reason. But be aware that just because no one is saying there's an officer opening doesn't mean that there are not actual officer openings that you could apply for. So that's the structure. You have kingdom officers, regional or principality officers, then you have local officers. 3 tiers within Ansteorra. You're a local. You want to apply for an office. How do you do this? Well, first of all, let's start off with due diligence before you actually begin the process. You want to find out, before you ever apply, before you ever fill out paperwork, you want to find out, what does that office do? You want to find out, what are the requirements of that office? How often do you have to fill out reports? How often do you have to attend meetings or practices? Who do you have to work with in that office? What type of skill set does it require? Are you physically capable of fulfilling this role as an officer? If you are a Knights Marshal, your job is to be a marshal at the fighter practices for whatever that discipline is, whether it's rapier or chivalric. And are you able to get off work and show up to fighter practices, every week, every other week, 2 times a week, whatever is the local tradition with your group? Are you able to be a herald? Now, herald, I know herald firsthand. Herald's a big job, and I strongly advise people to make use of deputies, because very few of us, including myself, are functional, let alone fluent in all aspects of heraldry. But being a herald usually means conducting ceremonies and overseeing names and arms submissions, and if not, finding people who can do that. Do that for you as a deputy. Are you capable of coordinating those people? Do you have the time? Do you have the communication, the availability to do that? So those are the considerations. For each office, there is something different that you need to be aware of, you need to look into, you need to know about before you put in for it. I know for a fact at a society level, there's a requirement that any office that interacts with children, namely Minister of Children or youth marshals, required to have a SCA specific background check. So you're going to need to make sure you have that background check. You need to make sure you have the paperwork you need available for them to do that background check, and you need to look into that. So that's all the prerequisites. That's before you even grab a piece of paper and apply. Now, the next thing you need to do is find out if the office is open. I'll tell you right now, at least in Ansteorra, if the office is not open, you can do all the rest of these steps, and your application is going to wind up in the waste paper basket, because, excuse me, no one is going to oust an officer or ask someone to step down just because a better officer comes along or a better looking applicant comes along. It doesn't work that way. There needs to be an opening. And officer openings are announced. They have to be. That's kingdom law. They have to be announced at a meeting. They have to be announced in an official publication. They have to be in the newsletter. And because of that, they're almost certainly going to be widely announced on whatever your social media platform is, or however else mass communication works in your group. So if you are eyeing Knights Marshal, Hospitaller, Minister of Arts and Sciences, Seneschal, whatever, this process is going to start when you hear them say, this office is now open for applications. Now, once it's open for applications, then what do you do? There are 2 ways of doing this. They both are kind of the same. One's digital, one's pencil and paper. But you go to the your kingdom website, and in Ansteorra, the officer application is on the website. It's a PDF that you can fill out on the computer, save as a PDF document, and then you email that document in. But what you do is you fill out the form. Now, a officer application is pretty straightforward. It asks name, address, phone number, contact information. It will ask you for your membership number. At least in Ansteorra, in order to be a warranted officer, you have to be a paid member. That's just a baseline requirement. And on some applications I've seen, there is even a note that says, will your membership be current for the next 6 months or something like that. And that's kind of a little reminder that memberships expire, please make sure yours doesn't expire 3 days after you submit this. Kind of defeats the purpose of putting the membership number down. So you have to fill out this form. And if you're in Ansteorra, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes for the officer application. But you fill it out. Now, the bottom part of the form, it asks you for your qualifications. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I keep a SCA resume, and I have it broken down by subject matter. You know, my arts and sciences accomplishments, my officer accomplishments, my leadership accomplishments, and so forth. I'll go to my list of officer and leadership requirements and copy paste those lines. You know, just copy paste straight into the body of the document when I'm applying, because those are relevant. Those are what they're looking for. You know, I've held this office, this office, this office. I've been deputy to these people at these times. I've had a cumulative, I think I added up, I've been an officer or deputy for a grand total of 6.5 years out of the 25 that I've been playing. You know, all of that stuff goes in. Now, if you don't have a resume, then you're going to have to sit down and pencil out all the stuff you've done. And if you don't have a lot of SCA experience, which is fair, a lot of people, you know, if you're watching this video and you're learning, you probably haven't been an officer before, you probably haven't done all this before, obviously. It's absolutely valid to write down stuff outside the SCA that corresponds with what you are doing, what you're applying to do here. And a lot of times it's the simple stuff, punctuality, you know. Was a assistant teacher at my dojo for 3 years. Have coordinated, you know, was a assistant director or coordinator at a local convention, or a you know, a stage director at a show. You know, show that you can organize, show that you can do the paperwork, show that you can do the numbers. If you're going for Reeve and you say you're an accountant, that won't hurt your application, I assure you. Fill it out. And also, on the application, it will list documents that it needs a copy of. Now, I know when I last applied, I think it needed a copy of my membership card, which I just took my phone, snapped a picture, and sent a JPEG of that. And there was a point in time where it required a driver's license photograph. I don't know if they still require that. But the point is that there are documents. You'll want to make sure you include those. So you get your application together, and if you really feel strongly, or if you feel like this warrants it, you can put a letter together with it. Now, this is why I feel like I'm good for this job. I know several people for local offices that have put together a pretty strong cover letter to go with their packet. You know, make your case. Nothing wrong with that. Word of the wise, don't make it 12 pages long. Their eyes will roll at page 1, and they'll probably stop reading before they hit the bottom of page 2. But, you know, a good 1-page summary of your case to be this officer, probably not going to hurt anything. Stick that in there. Get the packet. Now, if you are doing this paper, you will need to get mailing addresses. You need to hand a copy over to the seneschal, and you will need to hand a copy over to the upline, if you're a local officer, to the regional counterpart of whatever your office is. Now, one of the exceptions you're going to run into, some local officers don't have regionals. They report straight to Kingdom. I am a archery marshal. I'm not an officer, but I'm a marshal. And there is no regional archery marshal. So we report straight to the Kingdom archery marshal, who in turn answers to the Kingdom Earl Marshal. So that's one of those exceptions. But the overwhelming majority of officers have a regional that they will answer to, and you will need to mail a copy to the regional. If you're doing this online, you get the email addresses for those officers, and you pretty much send one email with the packet attached, and one to the seneschal, one to the regional. You're going to want to carbon copy yourself. Keep a record that this is the email I sent, and it'll be a timestamp on there of when you sent it, which will be helpful. Now, who else needs to get a copy of that? You know what? In terms of ink on paper requirements at the Kingdom level, I think that's all of them. But oh boy, local traditions vary. So will your mileage on this. So the next step before you send this is you need to contact your seneschal and the regional. of whatever office you're applying for, and if not the regional of the kingdom, whoever it is that will make the decision. And ask, I have an officer application I'd like to put in. Who do I need to send it to? What people, plural, should I copy on this? And they may say, we need a copy sent to regional seneschal, or we may need a copy sent to such and such officer over here. May not even get a reason why, but if the person who's hiring you says you need to include these names on the application send field, you do it. And then you send it out. Now, when officer applications are opened, when officer positions rather opened for application, there's a set term of time. I believe they have to be open for a minimum of 30 days. And that's 30 days from when they are announced. So if someone says in the middle of the month that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and step down in a few weeks, let's go ahead and open this for application, but they don't get the announcement into the newsletter until the end of the month, the clock starts when it's published. That's the 30-day mark. So keep that in mind, because 30 days will go by faster than you think. I can't tell you how many times I've seen officerships open up, and I could swear it's the next day, and they're announcing who gets it. And of course not, it's 30 days later, but you blink and it's gone. There may be an email back. There may be questions. If they get multiple applicants. I know when I was regional, part of, for me, the regional herald's position was I was the guy that decided who got hired for the next local herald. If I got multiple applications, I'd send questions out. Like, I want to see who's going to reply to my questions. I want to see how they reply. And there was one case where we had 3 applicants, only one person replied to my email. Take a wild guess who I named, because herald is a administrative job. If you can't answer my emails, that doesn't bode well for you. But after you send them up, you wait, and the officer overseeing the decision, that may be a regional officer, maybe a kingdom officer, will do their homework. That homework may be asking local peers, asking local officers, asking the local seneschal specifically. I've seen that happen a lot. Asking other officers in the region, depending on how influential or how public the office is, they can ask around and ask just about anyone. And it's important that they do. They need to know, what are the demands of that office? How did the last person do? What type of challenges they face? So they know what type of challenges the next person will face. And they'll ask about the applicants. They'll ask, is this person known for these skills? Does this person have anything I need to know about that could be a detriment in this office? They have those options. Or they may just look at the applicant and make a decision in 10 seconds. It's up to them. It really is. But then they will make an announcement. Now, I've had announcements land a whole bunch of, and this is me personally. I have been called on the phone and told that I was being named the officer. I have seen my name as part of a mass email where it was, these are the new officers in the kingdom, and a bunch of people were named, spittlers and Minshpar Sciences and heralds and all that, and my name was on that list. That happened once. There was a time where I was announced, or rather, the announcement came. I didn't get this office, but the announcement came in the middle of a it was a Herald's Plenary meeting at one of our kingdom administrative events. So, as to how you will find out, your mileage may vary. I wish I could say I can't even tell someone in the barony right now in Biesenfeuer how they will likely find out, because it could be phone call, it could be email, and even if it's either one of those, it could be from the regional, could be from the kingdom, could be from the seneschal. You'll find out. And that's kind of the little micro adventure that is applying for officership in Ansteorra. Now, if I had any advice to give you, treat every office as if it's very, very important. Now, I'm not saying it's very, very time-consuming or very, very critical. I'm not saying trump it up to more than it is. But don't ever apply for an office thinking that it's window dressing something that you're not going to have to worry about, but maybe once every couple of months. I know people who've done that, and invariably those people would get the office and something would come up that required more time, energy, and skill than they were ready to put into it. It just doesn't end well. You are volunteering your time and your resources to uphold this office. Now, slightly outside of subject, but I'm going to say this. If you ever feel like you can't do the office, if you get it and you feel like you can't do it, I implore you to contact your upline, the person you report to, and tell them, I am having trouble, I do not feel like I can do this. Now, is it possible you will be removed from office? It's possible. I'm not going to deny that. It is much, much, much more likely that you will be engaged and they will say, okay, how can we support you? How can we help you? What do we need help with? Do I need to get you a deputy? I've actually had a kingdom level officer at one point offer to come in and more or less take over my job for a few months while I got a few things straightened away on my end personally. And I didn't wind up taking them up on that offer, but I was touched by the offer because I know they're busy and they were that dedicated to helping me make sure I succeeded in the office I was holding. So it's very easy to feel like you're getting bogged down, and it's very easy to feel like you're failing at an office. I can't tell you how many times that feeling has loomed over me. Don't let those hit you. Don't cower into a corner and try and forget about the office. Don't crater. Don't ghost everyone else in the office, in the officer corps. If things get to be too much, reach out, talk to your fellow officers, talk to your upline, and engage. And if nothing else, say, I really feel like it's best if we get someone else in here, and they'll open the officer application and someone else can step in. Now, like I said, that's a little aside, definitely off topic from my point of this video, but if you're going to go in, if you're going to do this, I do feel like that's a valid footnote to the conversation, because it is easy to feel overwhelmed. It is easy to feel like you're failing. And the overwhelming majority of the time, the vast majority of the time when you feel that way, you're not. You're having a rough moment, and you get some people together, and you'll get past it. I know I have plenty times. So that's how you do it. That's the adventure. That's the insanity that is Ansteorra's bureaucracy. What did I miss? How do they do it in your kingdom? How do they do it where you are? Even if you're Ansteorran, how do they do it where you are? I know up here we always get razzed on about, we do things differently, which is fair up here north of the Red River. But how do they do it where you are? Talk to me, share. I'm really interested to know. And I hope that this video is informative and something that you can either learn from or perhaps share with other people in your group who might not know this and might want to. I'll see you at the next event. Goodbye and God bless.